Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:30 and recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, and we are ever grateful for their care and stewardship of this land since time immemorial. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? With the late item, which we received this afternoon.
I'll make the motion to approve the
Thank
agenda
you.
with the late item.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And adoption of the Committee of the Whole minutes and the regular council minutes, please.
Move the adoption.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And we have UROC here to talk about the pump track. Come on up. You're welcome to sit or stand or whatever you like. Just make sure you speak into a mic so the hordes of people watching on YouTube can hear you.
Testing.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Joe Schwartz, one of the UROC board members. Thanks for having us. And yeah, I'm going to present to you the Cumberland All Wheels Skills Park project proposal, where we're at to date, and where we're hoping to go. So the All Wheel Skills Park is centered around pump track. So if it's an unfamiliar term to anyone, essentially, it's a circuit of rollers and banks that a user can move through without actually having to pedal. They're using the rollers and banks to actually generate speed through that track. So that's an example of a pump track. And what we're proposing in this project specifically is an asphalt pump track. Why an asphalt track? It's inclusive. So an asphalt pump track, unlike a dirt structure, allows for multiple user groups. So we can have adaptive wheels, we can have kids on run bikes and scooters, BMX, mountain bikes, skateboards, all these different types of users can use this facility. Pump track and asphalt pump track's economic and sustainable. So there's minimal ongoing maintenance costs. Once it's in, it's good to go. There's some really minor costs associated with sweeping, any landscaping, if there's grass growing in between the asphalt sections. But maintenance costs are really, really insignificant. And then a fairly small land footprint is required for a pump track. It's healthy, fun for all age groups and skill levels. So like I was saying, it's inclusive, but it's fun for kids on run bikes. So 2-year-olds all the way up to 80-year-olds. Anyone can use it, and any skill level can enjoy a pump track if it's designed and built correctly. And then it's a safe, controlled environment. So the pump track, because it's asphalt, doesn't change over the season. It doesn't change in different weather. You can kind of understand what it's going to do in all conditions. So the proposed location is in the current jump and skills area. These are some photos of the current area, and you can see in this first photo here, I'm not sure which screen people are looking at, this photo here, there's a jump line, or there's several jump lines here, and then off to the looker's left, there's a series of kind of rollers and banks, and this is it in more detail. So that area is kind of the current solution for a pump track. And in perfect conditions for an advanced rider, it does work quite well, but it only really works in perfect conditions for an advanced rider. And it requires quite a bit of maintenance. You can see this was taken midsummer, and it just becomes quite a difficult thing to, one, to maintain, and then two, to actually ride. And a asphalt track would solve a lot of that. It's the jumps are to date, a lot of work has gone into these jumps, and they're built in a way that they could stay dirt, and they are very well maintained. And but the area that in question for the asphalt track would be this specific area. I'm not talking about these jumps at all. So why does Cumberland need one? Why do we need to replace what we have with something else? Because by doing this, it would provide an accessible, functional facility for people that ride bikes and are active, and also a reason why people come and visit Cumberland in the first place. Tracks like this are a destination. So you think about places like Nanaimo, places like Langford, people that have, or communities that have put these facilities in, people will travel from off island specifically just to visit the Geordie Lund Bike Park or the Stevie Smith Bike Park. These are big facilities that they've built some pretty significant pump tracks in. And then it's a pretty amazing project that we could deliver across service organizations. We can also expand on Cumberland being this hub for recreation, this hub for community, and continue to build on that. And then the project itself will generate a lot of pride in the fundraising process and then in volunteer opportunities throughout the project. So scope of project, right now we're looking at approximately $195,000 for the build. Looking at the scope of this project is quite a bit smaller than the examples I use, the Stevie Smith Park and the Geordie Lund Park, that are all over $1 million to build those projects. And this budget, this project itself is based on projects of similar size that have been worked on around BC. And we're pretty confident that we can reduce these costs. I've had preliminary talks with TACO, with Cumberland Earthworks, community members, and knowing that we could reduce costs through volunteer time, through materials donations, through equipment donations. And the general plan for project completion would be late summer of next year. So the goal here is getting the project off the ground in an official capacity this year, in order to kind of move through with fundraising and then break ground next year. So we do have some initial concept drawings in place. And this was done through a company that worked on a project of a very similar size. So that's where I got the scope of project from. But you can see it fits quite nicely in the footprint that exists currently there. The only amendment to the footprint would be the dog park fence would be slightly adjusted in this concept, where the dog park fence currently is on a bit more of an angle here. But it fits quite nicely into this footprint. And this particular piece of the design is quite interesting. It's an adaptive section. So for adaptive wheels, adaptive mountain bikes. And this company that built out this concept for the project has built out another project that involved an adaptive line. And it's a really nice touch, really nice way to make sure that the project is inclusive. And not only does it work for adaptive riders, but because it's on a slight grade, works really well for tiny kids on run bikes that can use the little bit of gravity to help them move through that section. So that's a shot of some of the construction. So current status, UROC has taken the project on as a board directive. Like I mentioned before, there are initial talks underway with potential design build contractors and then material providers as well. I've had a site visit with the Village of Cumberland with Kevin and Tyler to look over the footprint that I'm proposing. The concept plan that I mentioned is complete, and we just got a $50,000 donation committed from Strathcona Sunrise Rotary, which is an amazing start to the project, and then will also allow us to take that and really build on fundraising. So very confident that we'll be able to meet scope of project goals on the fundraising side of things. And then why UROC as a project partner. We've got our board of directors with the expertise required to fundraise, as well as to engage community on a project like this. We've got an executive director with extensive project management experience. We've got the established relationship and MOU in place with the village. And then we've also got communication channels and ability to engage community on a project like this, as well as the industry knowledge within the board and connections to make sure a project like this succeeds. So next steps and the objective for this delegation is to confirm village interest in partnering on the project and request the village work with UROC to formalize partnership roles and responsibilities, including allocating village resources to the project. And then after that, once the project is formalized, would be build out a design build RFP and engage potential project contractors. And then continue to engage the community and continue fundraising. And hopefully come out of it with a concept like this.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. I'll just,
Any questions?
yes. Questions from council?
Thanks for the presentation. I think these are great. Every time I've ever seen one, they're loaded with people all the time. So it'll be an awesome amenity.
Can we go back to the map again?
Yep.
Just, are we keeping some of the original pump track with this plan?
No. So the original, so this footprint covers the original pump track, or what is there, what kind of passes as a pump track now. What would maintain is the whole existing dirt jump line. And if you're familiar with that area, the dirt jumps, I mean, like I said before, are very well established. They're very well built. They've been to date very well maintained, and the intent would not be to touch those in any way. I guess the only change, currently the dirt jumps flow into this area, where I think the existing idea with this track in general was that the dirt jumps would flow out this way, and then the riders would pedal back on the Colliery Trail back into the dirt jump area, whereas now riders come out of the dirt jumps quite quickly and into this pump track area. And this, in my experience, is actually barely used. There is a line on the outside that is kind of the exit for the dirt jumps that gets used. But the proposal would be that would change, and this would be the new pump track area.
Okay, and so we would still need to maintain the jump park part of it.
Yeah, so this proposal does not include a concept for the maintenance or the continued maintenance of the dirt jumps themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, this would alleviate maintenance on that area, but not on the dirt jumps themselves.
Thanks. And as far as the costs go, you've got some funding from Rotary. You're going to be doing some fundraising. What sort of ask are you anticipating coming back to council with?
It would be minimal. I'm not sure exactly. I haven't kind of concepted out what, in terms of scope of requirement, there would be on from a financial perspective. But the goal here is to fundraise outside of here and make sure that we get the funds through the community.
And so you would really just need sort of staff resources for planning and project execution, I guess, and then maintenance. There's an agreement after that?
Yeah, correct. So the exactly that. It would be through the project itself, and then developing an agreement for how the village would take the project or take this facility on post completion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a great presentation, Joe. Really appreciate this, and it's
Thanks.
worked out really well in other communities too. Will there be any physical barrier separating the jump track or the jump park from the pump track, or was that?
There isn't in this concept plan. There would be. I mean, it's separated by dirt versus asphalt, and the design and build would have to take that into consideration in terms of rider flow and how that layout would look. There's no proposal to build some sort of divider like
Okay.
a fence line or anything, though. No.
And do you have a lifespan on, these overall? Or
Yeah, I mean, so some of the like Velo Solutions, for example, which is kind of a global provider of these, they did the Stevie Smith track and the Geordie Lund track. They offer a 10-year warranty on their tracks.
Yeah.
And then most companies offer between a 5 to 10-year guarantee on their asphalt track. And that would be the expectation. And then, anecdotally speaking, doing research into pump tracks, most providers say, yeah, we do this. We offer 10-year, but most of our tracks are still going strong that we built in the 2000s. And but that's kind of the advertised lifespan.
All right. No, great presentation. Thank you.
Any other
Anything
questions?
else? Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out how, so similar to Councillor Barecki, the division between the two, is it damaging for dirt riders to then come into the pavement, or does that mixing doesn't really matter? I know there's BMX tracks that have paved corners and dirt pump, and so maybe that's okay.
Yeah, it's not damaging, and I would expect that would most likely happen to some degree.
Yeah.
Even riders going through the jump line and then spending some time in the pump track. Worst thing that is going to happen is tires will track some dust and dirt into the asphalt track, and that's kind of the one potentially ongoing maintenance cost, maybe an hour in the heat of the summer of sweeping the track. But other than that, there would be no. The ideal scenario would be that the pump track and the dirt jumps are designed, and the plan would be that they're designed so the flow doesn't they don't connect. So the dirt jumpers aren't coming into the pump track at speed, or
Yeah.
they will have separation for that in that regard for safety. But in terms of ongoing maintenance or damage to the track, there's minimal
Okay.
concern.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then my other concern would be rerouting the people on the dirt pump jump. How are we going to distinguish these two things? One's going to be a jump park and one's going to be a pump track.
Yeah.
Pump park.
Yeah,
park
pump track.
versus jump.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So as they come off and head onto that Collier Trail where people are walking and biking and whatever, we just have to make sure that is safely rerouted somehow, and that then they can get access back onto that track from that side. 'Cause
Yeah,
something
there is
there that
access
is-
already,
is
like
there?
around so there's a kind of a
There's a funny
large.
little,
You can see the access right here. Actually,
Okay.
it kind of switchbacks up back onto the raised pile of dirt that the jump lines start from.
okay.
And then, in terms of access or riders exiting onto the Colliery Trail, that the speed or the control in which they enter on can be managed through design. Like you
Yeah.
could build like an S-turn or some sort of thing that actually forces the riders to slow down before they enter, even
Awesome.
like a little kind of corral.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for that. I think everybody else asked the other questions I had. So thanks.
Okay,
for
thank
being
you.
here. Thanks for bringing this project forward. And can I have a motion to receive that delegation, please?
I'll move that council receive the delegation from United Runners of Cumberland regarding the asphalt pump track project.
Thank you, seconder.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And cycling route to Courtney. So we had a presentation last council meeting, and staff are asking for referral to the what?
Transportation master plan.
Okay. Yes, to the transportation master plan. So
Right through
Do you
the
want to
mayor.
speak to it?
Yes, it's also for staff to liaise with the Comox Valley Regional District on the active.
On the route?
Yes.
Yes.
Because they've started as well, so we're going to continue to work with them.
Thank you. Council, do you have questions, comments?
Yeah, no, I think it's good to start that conversation.
Absolutely.
So I do have something from Troy, who is wondering whether we can allow the cycle groups access to the village right-of-way, as well as the staff recommendations. So can we just allow people into that right-of-way to see whether or not they can create some kind of path, or is there some reason why that is not appropriate?
Just a quick question on the right-of-way. You mean off of Royston into Small?
Off Small Road, I think.
I'm not
bit of
100%
property
sure
that's
of the
ours.
answer to that because I've been told it's a funny entrance. Like staff wasn't sure that that was feasible, but if you'd like to direct staff to look into that, if it's
Yeah, I think I think that there was some, like, yes, we need to do all this. We need to refer it, and we need to consider it through the master transportation plan. But that's going to be a very long process, and the short-term solution on Small Road and then our right-of-way could be a short-term solution. And I think we were hoping that we could find a way to make that
The
work as
right-of-way
well.
is public, so as long as they're on the public right-of-way, then that's fine.
Well, it's our right-of-way.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't stop anyone, I guess. I think I would have to ask staff to just find out what the rules would be on that.
Okay.
It's also, I think it's steep, is what I like, or something. It's not. I don't know, but it's not.
Okay.
But we could look into it.
So yeah, maybe we'll just continue to work on that while we make this recommendation. Okay. Somebody want to move that?
Sure, I'll move the council further the request for improved cycling route to Courtney to staff to liaise with the Comox Valley Regional District on the Regional Active Transportation Network Plan implementation and the Comox Valley Cycling Coalition, and include the CV Cycling Network Community Working Group as a stakeholder group for the Cumberland Transportation Master Plan.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And reports. Cumberland's 125th anniversary event. Kaylin, are you presenting? Who's coming up? Are you everybody coming up?
We missed one.
correspondence.
Oops. Oh, sorry. Wait up. There's correspondence first. City of Courtney equitable access to mental health and substance use in the Comox Valley. There's a resolution there and a recommendation.
I'd like to move that council participate in regional efforts with the City of Courtney to collaboratively request increased funding from the province of British Columbia for island health, local nonprofits, and private providers for the purpose of filling the gap in mental health and substance use and service in the Comox Valley.
Thank you. Seconder. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you, City of Courtney. Okay, now we're on to 125th. Sorry about that false start.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. I'm here to make my obligatory thanks for having me, but I
not
think
really.
through my report, we're very familiar with what's happened so far with the 125th event, and it's my pleasure and excitement to introduce Megan Kersons and Vig Schulman as your event managers for this, and Vig and Megan are here kindly to present an overview of belonging, which is the theme for our celebration on June 10th. So
Come on up.
Come on up.
You're welcome to
pretty
to
sure they don't
sit
need an introduction
or
as well.
stand.
Sweet logo.
That's to scroll through? That's counterintuitive. We can just sit, if that works.
Yeah, just share the mic so everybody can hear you. Yeah.
Hello, everybody out there. And
Yes, turn around so this camera can see.
actually on the back of my head just to sort of engage, but
It's a great idea.
bit cheeky.
You want me to? Okay.
No, no, please. No.
Apparently I win the talking contest between Vig and I.
Surprising.
So we are super pleased and honored to have the responsibility to bring this event to life. This is funded by Canadian Heritage through Building Community through Arts and Heritage Funding, which is a funding program I'm familiar with professionally as well. And Vig and I have worked both together in parallel for many, many, many years, and so it seemed.
Almost decades.
Yeah, it seemed like a really great opportunity. I think we both share a really deep love and respect for this community, and it was really, we were like, well, at least we can offer. They could always say no. So we got together and made an offer. So thank you to the staff at the Village of Cumberland for deciding that we might be the right people to do this. So, but we did take a little bit of a different, I don't know if a different, these are really interesting times, and the notion of a civic event in its previous sort of incarnations, not in Cumberland, I just mean generally in communities, is evolving and shifting, and we know this much like many gatherings, so that they reflect principles of equity, justice, decolonization, and so I think that for both Vig and I, we felt like we couldn't sort of step forward and offer to do this without presenting it in that lens. The artwork that you see here for Belonging is designed by Megan Trumbull. We're really excited to have her with us doing graphics. And really the conversation starts with the history of the community, the 125th anniversary. The first paragraph there is essentially, what we're planning to do, and then context. And the context is that in 1898, when the village was established as a municipality, existed within an array of multicultural communities that had come to be through many other pathways, all on unceded Indigenous territory. And so to talk about the incorporation of Cumberland without an acknowledgement of the lands and the people that were also here and the context in which that settlement was developed is really important. And that's the kind of stuff that we're all learning about. Our kids are learning about this in school. We're learning about this in local government. As cultural presenters, we're all figuring out this is actually, how to do this work. Do you want to speak to this at all, this part, Vig, or just, I'm happy to keep rambling.
Well, I think
Yeah.
I think the piece about what was here before, we call this place Cumberland, is kind of critical, and also the fact that we'll move forward with when we describe the event, but it just so happens that on the same date, our museum is presenting A Seat at the Table, which is the first traveling project of this amazing exhibit that has happened in Vancouver for the past year. And I think
It'll be coming up.
It'll be coming up. But that being said, so we're also commemorating the 100th year of the Chinese Exclusion Act. So I think those are the things that Megan's alluding to, and we'll speak further as we get into it.
So when we think about the concept of celebration, and I mean at the risk of being, there's a certain degree of when a community does a civic celebration, it's a celebration for those who are still there, right? We made it, we won, we hung on to real estate. I don't know. It's like we could afford our rent. And so we wanted to acknowledge that not everyone has come along in this story of Cumberland. And the story of belonging has included colonization, exclusion through the Indian Act, Japanese internment, the Chinese Exclusion Act, gender-based legislation that has impacted the role of women in their capacity to own property, to be able to participate in civic life, government, racism, extractionism, significant environmental extractionism, labor exploitation, and in this day, gentrification, which are all part of the story of Cumberland. So we can look at that as not good, or we could look at that as a day to reflect and acknowledge those things, that we have a legacy that includes exclusion and loss, and use it as an opportunity to renew our commitment to belonging and to renew commitment to a community that is welcoming and a community that will welcome those just as we have all been welcomed here at some point, because none of us have been here forever. And so the graphic, we have many different color versions of the graphic. I'm just there to show you. So this is the one that Vig is referring to. So Vig and I actually sat down with the museum right off the bat, and this part of the program has actually always been in the conversations that have been happening in the community about 125 Seat at the Table has always been a real central part of this, because they were planning to bring in this exhibition from Museum of Vancouver. So it's the first location that this touring exhibition is going. And it looks at the history of Chinese immigration in Canada through the lens of food and restaurant culture. And it's an incredible exhibition. It's even got like restaurant tables where you sit down and you like flip through and learn about like stories related to Chinese immigration. And I just really want to acknowledge the Cumberland Museum in how great they were in that conversation as we tried to shape and wrap our heads around how to do this. And Seat at the Table and really became the jumping off point. So some of the artwork from the Seat at the Table exhibition from the Museum of Vancouver. So first thing was Seat at the Table, and second is Community Street Celebration. I'll pass that to you, and I have some band photos.
Yes, and I think that, without disclosing everybody that we've booked to, to play this event, basically and I think there's a map in this, not really the map in,
but I did do this.
Yes,
Okay.
we have a number of people in the community that we will be showcasing, but we're also bringing in entertainment from some of the different cultural representation. There will be taiko drummers here. There will be the Chinese player, the Orchid Ensemble will be here. So we are bringing in some people that represent the BIPOC, non-binary, like the different communities that are represented currently and historically in Cumberland are going to be represented on the stage. And also there'll be a bit of music within the other areas, which Megan will talk more about. There are different areas, like we've got a sort of 4 quadrants that Megan will describe a little bit more
Should have
in
put the map
depth.
in. I didn't
The
put
map would make sense, but basically we are right downtown here. We're at First and Dunsmuir. That's the square, and there will be the green space adjacent to the Waverly, the green space in front of the museum and the cultural center, and the space right here, like in front of the civic buildings here. So we're blocking from Egremont to Second, and from Penrith down to number 6, because number 6 Mine Park is also going to be included in what we're calling a walk of inquiry, which Megan will speak further about. So rather than just blocking Dunsmuir like we always do, we're just going to block this sort of crisscross piece and focus the entertainment sort of in the square.
The civic
The
square.
civic square.
Right? It's the village buildings, the museum.
Because we want to
and- yeah.
include this physically, because this is who we are now. You folks, the village of Cumberland, live here, so we want, and the museum, and so it just feels appropriate that this is the focus of the actual event.
So in good Cumberland form, there'll be a wonderful street party with wonderful music, with visiting but we're also, we're really focusing on there being seating areas and the idea that it works for elders and families. There's no beer garden planned for this environment. It's very much about people being able to flow in and out throughout the day and come to different performances that they might want to see. So we're not trying to create like day-long party or festival. We're trying to create sort of this event that you can weave in and out of the different offerings that are there. You could be there for the whole day, or you could choose to dip down with your family. And it's important. We have a lot of great parties in Cumberland. It's important that this be distinct also from those, so we're trying to come up with something a little different. So the second piece, and we're probably taking too long already, but is a strawberry tea. And so strawberry tea is an intergenerational social at the Cumberland Cultural Center. Teas are a huge part of Cumberland's settler history as well. European settlers using them as fundraisers through churches and service associations, but also a Japanese tea house that was at Comox Lake for over 30 years. There's a rich tradition in this community, so where you have a strawberry tea that is going to include direct invitational to elders in the community, including Cumberland Lodge. There'll be a series of seatings. Youth and from the school are going to be servers. It's going to be quite lovely. I was happy to secure our strawberry tea coordinator earlier this week, and it's going to be Catherine Bell, who has a wonderful food and beverage background, but also wonderful relationship with lots of elders in this community and through Flow. So she's super excited and good to go and drawing in her family and networks to make the tea happen. I'm really excited about the tea. Somebody was suggesting like
Me too.
fancy hats and stuff like that. I don't know if we have time for that, but
Fancy sandwiches, rolled up
yeah,
sandwiches.
right now it's strawberry shortcake, and so Catherine and I are also plotting how exactly to end up with 750 portions of strawberry shortcake, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So this is one of the articles from the Cumberland Anglican Women's Group, the old Anglican Church, which is Cumberland Community Church, doing one of their teas, and this was posted. I posted it on Old Cumberland, and all these people popped up and was like, "That's my auntie," and this, and so and this has been really great. Sean from Ancestry Hunter is his Facebook profile, helped me dig up a bunch of tea articles, and so there's one about the Strawberry Social held by the United Church, and this is a long-standing a Cumberland thing. So strawberry shortcake, it's the right time of year for strawberries. That's why we're going strawberries. So this one we're super pumped about. This is called the Dumpling Project, and we're in active partnership with Lush Valley. Cumberland Community Schools is now involved as well as helping us facilitate events at the school for making 5,000 dumplings. So we're going to do a dumpling project, and there's going to be a bunch of different work parties, and Lush is leading this work through their Community Kitchens program in partnership with us. And so we're going to do cross-cultural dumpling offering also with choy, because from a food security perspective, choys are really, like bok choy and different choys in the spring are very, very available. And so it's a really important thing to integrate into our food systems from a food security perspective in the spring. And we are working on gluten-free options, Mayor Brown.
Thank you.
And yeah, the
It'll be
dumpling
served
thing.
right from here.
Oh yeah, we had some ideas about who might serve it.
Yes, yeah, possibly dignitary service, who knows?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm game for serving.
Figure that's who said. So yeah, so dumpling parties. So the idea of making dumplings together, and we know this from the wonderful groups of folks that got together to do the pierogies for the Ukrainian fundraiser, that the act of making food together, dumplings, is very much tied to the tradition of how community and family connects through creating food. So we are doing this in partnership with Lush as a community building project. And then when the dumplings are served, there will be many, many people who will know that they had their hand in the making of the dumplings. Clean hands, food safe supervisors. Okay, so Paths of Belonging is a little bit more complex, but it's pretty exciting. And it's the idea of creating a reflective space in Number 6 Park. The museum exhibition draws on newspaper articles and segments of like legislation that quote really some pretty horrendous racist content, racist of the time. And so we like the idea of actually pulling written works through time through the Old Cumberland newspaper around ideas of inclusion, exclusion, and belonging. And so we're really excited on this project that we have partnership with Comox Valley Arts. Kim Bannerman is joining us in supporting writing, and a woman named Sarah Clark who's going to work with us as well. Our idea here actually is leading up to the event to do something that mirrors a project she did at the Comox Valley Art Gallery, where she asked people questions about loneliness. And so we're translating this into belonging and actually planning to do these questions at the school and go to the Legion and go to the Rotary meeting and it involve some sort of booklet or something like that where people are actually responding. And Sarah's a data point artist. So what she does is she collects and collates responses and then creates a data representation of people's feelings about loneliness and connection and disconnection. And then there's a narrative component of that that Kim can bring forward as a writer. So now, it's building community through arts and heritage. You're going to have to deal with a little bit of contemporary art here. So, but this is a really exciting piece that hopefully leading up to the event and through Market Day and different days, we're planning to really reach out and ask people to respond, because this is central to the idea of that our community has gone through a great deal of change, as have many communities, and there are people who have been here for a long time who feel very at home and a deep sense of belonging, and there's people who've been here for a long time who can't recognize this community and feel disconnected. And there are people here who are brand new, who love this place and feel like super pumped and are connected, and there are people who are brand new who feel like they don't know anyone and they're caught in a subdivision somewhere and don't feel connected. So this story is about like how do we weave those experiences together, and in this post-COVID context and in challenging times of high speed growth for our community, how do we address these conversations and bring them forward and put our feelings on the table? Lighting the Way is a participatory lantern project. We're excited with this one. We're working with Lucky Village, Robin Constaberas and Kathy Stoiko from the Abbey Studio. To do a lantern making project. So there's going to be a series of lantern workshops leading up to the 10th. And day of, we're doing working on the number of about 500 family lanterns. That day, working with the paper Chinese lantern format, and then working with essentially a collaging technique that will waterproof them, because it's done with It's like Mod Podge, if
Mod
anyone's
Podge.
worked with
Oh,
Mod
okay,
Podge.
yep.
So it has
Like
an
an
acrylic.
It's an acrylic
Glue,
medium.
yeah.
Yeah, so these guys have been experimenting with like crazy of how do we do this affordable, but also make it so that it can last for the season, because the intention with lighting the way is on this theme of belonging. It's about lighting, and lanterns are very much about lighting the way for the ancestors, right? In many traditions, you hang the lanterns out, and it's about guiding the souls of those who have come before, about honoring your parents and grandparents, great-grandparents. But in this context, we could also be looking at it as a way to light the way for present and future villagers. So we're honoring the ancestors, but also hanging our lanterns out in an act of welcome, and in an act of commitment, again, to a community that's about belonging. And this comes across in so many cultures. And then because we'll be so close to the summer solstice, it's not going to work to do a lantern parade. So we are going to build a lantern parade into Foggy Mountain Fall Fair on September 16th. So we'll be asking people to hang their lanterns for the summer, to light the way through the summer, and then we'll end with an alley procession. And we're working with Jared from Cumberland Studio for a lantern procession. And it looks like Jared from Cumberland Studio is also going to be involved in another install. There's lots of little details, but we're giving you the big pieces. All right, there's the graphics again in orange. And that's it. So yeah, those are the component parts, and open to questions.
Fantastic. Questions?
It sounds awful, eh?
I have no questions. I don't think you left many details out there. It's very well done. Thank you. Thank you very much and thanks to Meg Trumbull for that incredible graphic there. That's fantastic. So will those be screen printed for?
Thinking about, so
Yeah.
bring their own shirt down activity, and get both Ian and Rowan probably out on the street, and then you can bring your own garment. So it's upcycle too, instead of buying a bunch of.
Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else?
Excited and intrigued. Good work.
Yeah, it all sounds fantastic. Really, really interesting. And I like that we're tackling some of these hard issues and saying, yeah, like, this is where we're at, then where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
One note just to finish up on for me is that we're tackling those issues, but from a perspective of what people experience, it's going to be all the good stuff. It's going to be music all day. It's going to be food served. It's going to be, you could take away what you want from this. We're not speeching about this. We are, osmotically, people will possibly take in some queries and things to think about, but it's still going to be an awesome family day with all the sort of festive components that I think we all love and trust that we get at a Cumberland outdoor event.
That's awesome. I appreciate you saying that. So I was just wondering from staff, we revised the budget. So all of this that has been presented today is part of the current budget for this.
Yeah, so as part of the process for applying to become the event managers, we asked all applicants to submit a conceptual work plan. And Megan and Vig, along with this work plan, also provided a budget that showed us how they could work our new funding amounts into this project and stuff. So that really, again, aside being Megan and Vig, helped out with that decision-making process. It's very ambitious, but I'd like to acknowledge as well how community-focused this is, and you'll see that extended, and correct me if I'm wrong, through how this is marketed and presented. This is really going to be marketed and presented to residents. And the idea is we get caught up in having a big event party. I think what Megan says, we won, we made it. Let's invite the whole world. I think this is a real just opportunity for us to build some bridges in our community and focus on each other and spend some time acknowledging why we're all here. So that's what I like about it. Yeah.
Me too. But that was the main thing I wanted to get out of this celebration, is to bring the community together, all the bits and pieces and all the elders and youngsters and new and old and all those things. And you guys have just done an amazing job of weaving that into all the different elements. And I think I just think it'll be a lovely event and also meaningful.
Mention the engagement thing tomorrow. Is it possible?
Oh yeah, right.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
plug
so-
your.
Well, yeah, and I was thinking about teacups is where my head went. I was like, and teacups. All these people have teacups, and they were like, I have all these antique teacups. And I was like, well, as long as there's like a contract, if we break some, it's okay. Like, we'd love your teacups. So there's like 200 teacups that have been secured between Shannon and Catherine Bell and Diana Page. Anyhow, they'll be fancy teacups. So tomorrow night we're having a meeting. We have no idea what will happen tomorrow night, but essentially each one of the projects, since the time that we got the contract till now, we've been working really hard on being able to articulate how and where community can engage on each of these. So we know when the lantern workshops are. We know what the volunteer roles are for lanterns. We know what we're looking for the strawberry tea. We'll have 4 dates secured for the dumpling making. And then we have a volunteer coordinator as part of the contract so that anyone who wants to get involved can express their interest. And then it's Heather Thompson, who's the volunteer coordinator for Woodstove and also for the Cumberland Forest Society. And she'll deploy. So that meeting's tomorrow night, and some of the people that have offered to help out, another person who's going to help us with intergenerational linking. Oh my God, is my brain totally gone here for a minute? I want to say Donna.
Donna Woolley.
No, not Willie.
No.
Ollie.
Frawley, thank you.
Frawley, thank you.
I'm like, where'd her name go? Donna. Yeah, so we've got other people who are coming tomorrow night to get a better sense. So we're going to present a more detailed version of this. And anyone who's like, yeah, I'm intrigued or I'm interested, is there a place? We've made sure that every one of the projects has volunteer openings and space to get involved by building work parties and build-up parties around them. So that's tomorrow night, 7 here. And it could be Kaylin, Vig, and I, and it could be a bunch of other people. We
It'll
don't
be
know.
standing room only.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's come on out, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, and if I may, Megan, part of this plan that Vig and Megan have built into this is that each venue has an indoor plan B if needed.
100%.
Yes.
And so it's June and it's here, so we never know what we're going to get.
And it's the day before my birthday, and it traditionally rains on my birthday. So, yeah.
So we're good.
So we're preparing.
Not this year. This year it's going to be sunny. Okay, any other questions or anything else?
Good
No.
job, guys.
Thank you so much.
For giving us some extra time there.
Go team.
Long storytellers.
Yes, thank you. It was worth it. We need to receive that probably.
I'll move that we
Where am
receive
I?
the presentation on
you.
Cumberland's 125th anniversary event from event managers Megan Kersons and Big Shulman.
Second.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it. Thanks for being here, everybody. Okay, development variance permit application 2540 Dunsmuir Avenue. Welcome, Elena. Oh, we got 2. Excellent. Okay.
All right,
Ready.
good evening. So the purpose of this first report this evening is to seek council approval on a development variance permit. The applicants of 2540 Dunsmuir Avenue are proposing to reduce the front setback on a portion of their primary dwelling from 3 meters to as close as 1.5 meters to accommodate an addition to their single-family home. The existing dwelling was constructed in it's actually late 1800s, and is sited over the front lot line into the road right away by about 0.25 meters at the southwest corner, and then it's not completely straight, so then it angles down a little bit to about 0.27 of a meter towards the southeast corner. And this siting is lawfully not conforming as it was built before current zoning requirements. There's also an external set of stairs accessing a second floor porch that was added to the dwelling by previous owners that encroaches just over a meter and will be removed with this addition. The applicants are proposing this addition on the east side of the dwelling, which would not add to the encroachment. However, to sort of keep with the current siting, which is, obviously over the lot line, they're requesting a setback of 1.5 meters. So this variance would allow them to construct the addition without having to blast or do extensive excavation in the backyard because it's quite rocky and steep right at the very back of their house. And the addition is complementary to the streetscape as it retains the character of the Camp Road houses by maintaining a minimal front setback and front porch design. The proposed cladding will be a continuation of the existing cladding, and it also includes a garage, so there's no loss of on-site parking. Currently, there is not a garage, so they'll be having an actual on-site space. And like I mentioned previously, the existing encroachment will actually be lessened by this new design, as the exterior stairs will be removed. Staff recommend approval.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a question about whether the fire services has looked at it and is fine with the reduction of the setback.
No, they have not. Operations did review it and they didn't have any concerns, but
Okay. So we don't know if that would be an issue for access?
it's actually, well, the addition would be further back from where the house is now. Sorry, in what context, like sort of what would the concern?
Yeah, just for fire access. Yeah.
Nope. They do meet all of the setbacks, so standard setbacks for.
Yeah, all the other setbacks. Like
Yeah, all the other,
side.
sorry, the other setback.
Yeah, so the access on the side.
Yeah,
Front.
sorry,
on the
yes.
side of it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll move the council approve the development variance permit to reduce the front setback from 3 meters to as close as 1.5 meters for a single-family dwelling on the property described as Lot 10, District Lot 24, Nelson District Plan 13640 to 2540 Dunsmuir Avenue.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you so much. I think I did want to say, so Camp Road, this is the style of development on Camp Road. The frontage is not normal. It doesn't have the regular setbacks. So this is part of how we allow the heritage of Camp Road to continue, is by facilitating these lesser setbacks. And it's not losing any parking. So I know parking's an issue up that end, but hopefully they park in their garage. That's what they're for. Okay, thank you so much. And you're going to stay there for
The next two.
the next one, which is a development variance permit application 2818 Maryport.
Yes. So this next one is a development variance application as well. The purpose of this report is also to seek a council decision on an application for this variance. The subject property currently has a one-story dwelling of 73.5 meters squared, which without a variance would limit the maximum size of an ADU to 55 meters squared. The applicant is proposing to install a prefabricated ADU at the rear of the lot. The ADU is proposed to be 62.5 meters squared, which is 85% of the single-family dwelling. Currently, ADUs are permitted to be up to 75% of the gross floor area of principal dwellings to a maximum of 90 meters. Due to the size of the existing single-family home, the ADU would be really quite small because the existing house is only about, 700 meters squared. Square feet, not meters, that'd be really big. This reduces the ability for the homeowner to purchase and use a prefabricated structure for an ADU. So by increasing the GFA as a percentage of the single-family home, the applicant would be more likely to be able to construct this two-bedroom ADU, which will provide an additional dwelling unit to the community. And the applicant can meet all other zoning requirements, such as lot coverage and the other setbacks, without additional variances. And staff recommend approval.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Barecki and then
Oh, no,
Councillor
no questions.
Oh, okay. Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I was just wondering, are we sacrificing any trees for this extra 10%
No.
coverage? Okay.
No.
And if we were, then maybe we could ask for a replacement since we don't have the tree bylaw. but-
Yeah. So with the ADU guidelines, they are required to either have existing shade tree on site,
Yeah.
or we do encourage that they plant a new one. So I know they actually, I believe this property has quite large Douglas firs or something at the back. But yeah, those won't be impacted by the ADU. Yeah.
Glad to hear, thanks.
Anything else?
This is just nice that we do this case by case for these kind of reasons.
Yeah.
I like it.
Go for it.
All right, I'm going to make the motion that council approve the development permit to increase the maximum permitted gross floor area of an accessory dwelling unit as a percentage of the gross floor area of the single-family dwelling unit to 85% for the property described as Lot 2, Block 25, District Lot 21, Nelson District Plan 522C.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And development variance permit and manufactured home park permit amendment, 3025 Royston Road.
All right. So the purpose of this development variance and manufactured home park amendment is to request a referral to the Advisory Planning Commission for comment. So the applicant is proposing to vary the manufactured home park bylaw by changing the requirement for a manufactured home park with more than 24 units to have a second access from a public road to instead provide emergency access only from a private road. The applicant is also requesting that the maximum height for principal dwellings in the second phase be increased from 4.5 meters to 5.5 meters. So as the site is a panhandle lot, the applicant is proposing to provide an 8-meter wide emergency access road onto the Trent River main. The applicant has successfully entered into a legal agreement with the property owner of the Trent River main and has registered an easement that grants them access to the proposed access, as well as the rights to keep it clear and maintain access throughout the year. The current access gate on the Trent River main will be moved past the access road, and emergency access to the manufactured home park will have bollards that restrict vehicle access other than emergency services who have a key. Should the Trent River main become a public road at any point in the future, the emergency access could easily become a regular access to the manufactured home park. The current primary access road was reduced through a variance to council last year, I believe. It still meets MMCD guidelines for travel lane width. In the event of an emergency, the reduced width access road could potentially be obstructed by residents trying to leave or emergency services vehicles coming in. In that case, the emergency access road could be easily accessed. And there would still be, pedestrian access would not be restricted. A culvert has already been installed across the ditch between the manufactured home park and the Trent River main, and that was done with the sign-off from a qualified environmental biologist. And then for the height, the impact of the 1 meter height increase would be minimal. The 5.5 meter height is lower than the 10 meter maximum height on the adjacent properties. And the additional height is not expected to noticeably change the overall look, except to accommodate a more contemporary design. The first phase of the 24 manufactured homes is permitted a 5.5 meter height by the Board of Variance. And I also just want to mention that I did look back at the previous zoning bylaws, and the height hasn't changed since the 1980s, when, prefabricated homes have come a long way in style, so that probably they wouldn't have imagined these slanted roofs and contemporary style when it was more just the traditional mobile home. So just something to note as well. And that's it.
Okay. Questions?
So it's going to be restricted access on both entries now, right? Like a smaller width than we would normally require for that number of units?
Yeah, so the original variance, or the manufactured home park, requires 8 meters, and they had a variance to bring it down to 6.5, which still meets MMCD guidelines for that type of access.
But that would just be on the other road.
Second
That's
This
onto
one
Royston
would be-
Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One is 8.
Right.
The second one is 8,
Okay.
off the Trent River main.
But we'll be on the dirt road,
Correct.
and we're not planning on paving that.
Not at this time. It still is not village property. It's something that potentially the manufactured home park owner could negotiate with the property owners of the Trent River main.
Yeah, because I think we had a similar issue when we were thinking about developing the dirt road end of Ulverston, that, if there was going to be a lot of traffic and units there, there would probably be dust issue and whatnot, and we would want.
Yeah. So the proposed secondary access wouldn't be used on a daily basis. It would be for emergency access only. So there shouldn't be any increased traffic. And it still is going to be a locked gate just past that, with that security guard that, is at the entrance there for the logging road. So staff don't anticipate an increase in traffic. It would really just be for emergency access only.
And still locked most of the time.
It would be locked all the time, yeah. And then the fire department or emergency services would have a key like they do to other private lands.
Yeah. And did we get any trails with this? Because I know we had talked before at the surrounding Kayet land that we had asked for connection with trails and that connect back through to the village.
Mm-hmm.
I think we said that maybe this property was too condensed, or that the riparian area would be compromised or something?
Yeah, so the biologist recommended not putting trails through the riparian area. And then the Trent River Main is not part of this development, so that would be the Kayet land. So at that development stage, then we would look at more access, a greenway through there.
Are they planning on fencing off this entire development?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, each property will have a fenced backyard. And also because they have to keep out of, we want to prevent encroachment into the riparian area, so fencing was one of the recommendations from the biologist.
So they wouldn't necessarily have access to a trail system if it was built later, or how would we? They would have to go out to the road to get back to
Yeah,
the
because
trail?
it's all wetland.
Yeah.
So-
Right.
Yeah.
So there is like the manufactured home park is pretty much completely surrounded by water. So there's a stream at the top, and then the Maple Lake Creek, and then the ditch that they had to put the culvert in. So I think you can cross it in the summer, the ditch along the Trent River Main. But yeah, they would probably go to the access on foot or bicycle, and then they could go that way.
But there were existing trails here, wasn't there?
I don't think
walked
so.
on that property before.
It's pretty swampy.
Yes.
Okay.
There were sort of
Raised, it's just
Like when you look at the aerial, I think it's on page 67, you can kind of see that there was a trail crossing that property, right?
yeah, I know a lot of dirt bikes used it as access onto the Trent River Main.
Right,
Because it was
okay.
they could get around the gate that way.
I see.
It wasn't like a official trail.
Okay.
I don't think we walked it a few times, and it was mostly dirt bikers.
Okay. Then the other thing I wanted to ask about was the park size back on page 64. So we're adding a whole other phase, but just that same little corner park on the
Yeah. So the park, the green space, the park, the parking, and the services were all calculated for the requirements for the entire density at build out, which was a risk for the developer without having approval for that secondary access. But they do meet the requirement for build out for the entire 56 units as per the manufactured home park bylaw. In the future, I think we would maybe look at increasing that because it is quite small.
Yeah.
I think it's
I'm just
like
trying to
only
imagine on a sunny
5%.
day, even half of the residents wanting to wanting to use that would be.
Yeah, they all do have their own private backyards as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
Not very large from what I'm seeing, but something. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? So I know the land there's been fill over the decades, but just before build, they also raised the height of the land. So I'm curious, when do we measure the height of the building? Like, so the application comes to council, we look at the land, we go, oh yeah, that's going to look good, and then they raise the height of the land by I don't
Yeah.
know, 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters. It's massive.
They had to meet this, sorry, my brain isn't working, the floodplain bylaw height. So they had to increase the height a bit. I think it was almost, I can't remember off the top of my head, 2 meters to meet the floodplain bylaw. And then also because the fill on site was just a mix of stuff. None of it was structurally sound for building. So I know that they did have to bring in like more engineered fill and compact that in order to meet the geotech requirements. So then it would be measured. I'll have to look into it more
Yeah.
for building, like at the
Yeah,
building.
I don't
permit,
need
yeah.
the answer right now. I'm
Oh,
just
sure.
like thinking
Yeah.
for future developments, how does this work? And then also knowing that fill was brought in over decades with nobody watching Do we know if it's contaminating in any way, and whose responsibility is that once that land is?
Yeah, so they were required to do a site disclosure statement to
Okay.
the provincial government, and yeah, so that didn't require additional
Okay.
mitigation measures.
Okay. Okay, and so this also then means that the phase two, so originally when the application came, phase two was at the point, that was when the secondary road would go in. And my understanding at the time would be that would be a secondary access point for the residents as well as emergency. I actually think this is safer to just have that be an emergency and have everybody else funneling out the other road, although that's a lot of people to funnel out a
Yeah.
narrow road in an emergency.
Yeah, we do have other examples. I know like the Stoneleigh Station has one entrance in and out, and then they also have a bollard protected access. So we did go over it with the fire department, with the fire chief.
Okay.
We walked the site a couple of times with operations and the fire
Yeah.
department.
Okay.
And yeah, I think Stoneleigh would be like another example of like a neighborhood that is quite similar that way with the density.
Okay. Okay, that's my only concern. Thank you. Somebody want to move that?
I'll move it. I'm just trying to get this a little bit bigger on my screen, sorry, so I can read it. All right. So we're gonna move to refer it to the Advisory Planning Commission. Is that it? Okay. So I'd like to make the motion that council refer the following development variance permit and manufactured home park permit amendment application for 3025 Royston Road to the Advisory Planning Commission. One, variance to the manufactured home park bylaw by changing the requirements for a manufactured home park with more than 24 units to have a second access from a public road to instead provide emergency access from a private road with access easement. And two, variance to the zoning bylaw to increase the height of all principal dwellings from 4.5 meters to 5.5 meters, and three, amendment to the 2021-01 MHP to include the second phase of development on the property.
Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have the official community plan review process and engagement plan. Come on up, Karen.
Hey, yeah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and be able to present on the process and timeline for the OCP review, our official community plan for Cumberland. So this is one of the strategic priorities of Council, and we're happy to be able to have put a process together that integrates some of the other work that's currently going on, and I outlined that in the report with the Transportation Master Plan, also some of the work that the CVRD is doing on greenhouse gas emissions, an inventory, and potentially an action plan that they're working on. So the current OCP dates back to 2014. Having reviewed the document a few times now, and also being involved in rezoning's OCP amendments, it is actually a really good plan, but it is starting to become out of date. It served the community really well, but the data is all based on 2011 census data, so the background information in the OCP that informs some of the growth scenarios is based on really old data. So we now, of course, have the 2021 census data available. We'll be looking at updated development and building permit numbers, and we'll have the greenhouse gas emissions inventory to inform our greenhouse gas targets and policy. So it's really a good time because all that data hasn't been available for very long, and so this is really timely to be starting this process now. process for the OCP review, the intent is really to involve as many citizens and a diverse range of citizens as possible. And we have identified several phases for engagement and also identified a specific role, a greater role for the Advisory Planning Commission to be kind of like our go-to group to run ideas by them, reflect on topic areas, reflect on the engagement events, and I should say I do have one little proviso in the engagement plan, and I think I just want to point that out, because as these things unfold, you always discover some other things that you need to do or that you haven't thought about, and I think that's the strength of a process such as this, that there's room for that. And I think the APC will be extremely helpful in that regard too. So while I outline engagement activities and those may shift slightly, or we may need to add the odd one, or we might adjust one. But what you will see in the process, in terms of how we approach the engagement, is that the initial one is kind of more of a high level. So the initial event is planned later this spring to engage the community in the vision. What are they envisioning Cumberland to be like in the next 10 years? How are we moving forward? What are some of their goals and the things that they'd like to see? And then also what are some of the topics of concern to residents of Cumberland? So that initial process will really inform the next engagement phase. And we'll have some time over the summer to analyze all the data, including the census data, some of the input that we receive through the first engagement event. And then the fall will really be a deep dive into different topic areas: housing, climate change, transportation, industrial economic development, and that will be also involve the public. And really, I mean, we're really looking forward to in-person engagement as well as online options. I think. Thanks, or I don't know, thanks to, I don't like to thank COVID for anything, but thanks to the pandemic, of course, we have, I think the public is expecting also to have online opportunities, and it provides people with another opportunity to participate. So aside from in-person engagement events such as discussion groups to do deep dives into topics, we'll also have an comparable online component attached to that, especially in the fall. So the two will be running, will be integrated with each other. I'll just provide an additional option for participation. And we'll start out with the survey will be online, but we are cognizant of people's providing different options. So obviously, I think we've always done that with vacation rental survey too. Paper copies will be made available. The focus will be for online because it's just a lot easier for people to complete it, and you usually have a better completion rate. When people have to take away a paper copy and return it, they might complete the survey and then they never get around to returning it. So that was our consideration with focusing on it being online, but of course providing the option to pick up paper copies at the village. So the third after this, so the heavy duty consulting and intense commitment to hear from Cumberland residents of different backgrounds and age groups and persuasions is really the fall, and we're also committed to bringing on specific topics, going to council committees, so as per their area of expertise to engage with the committees. And then there'll be quite a bit of analysis done after that, again in conjunction with the APC. So staff will do an initial summary, bring it to the Advisory Plan Commission for reflecting on what we've heard and how that would influence and how that'll drive the rest of the OCP review and some of the policies that'll be included. And then summary report to council at the end of each phase, so you get a sense where everything is at. And of course, hopefully you will also be attending the events. You're invited. Before we launch into the next phase. So phase 3 would be then a review. That's where we kind of narrowing down the focus. So the phase 1 is exploratory visioning, yeah, what's on your mind type thing. Phase 2 is more informed by also some of the data that we're getting, specific topics, and a deep dive into all those, having discussions. And then phase 3 is really trying to so phase 2 is open also, bring your ideas, have a good discussion, understand what's going on today, where we come from, where we want to go. And then phase 3 is really narrowing down some options based on what we heard. And in some areas we may be able to make specific recommendations that we run by the public, and others where maybe there was divided, we may be presenting an option on this or that topic. So but the focus for phase 3 is to narrow down, to get us to specific policies and for inclusion in the draft bylaw that would come to council together with the summary of phase 3, and then the formal bylaw adoption process starts, which includes a public hearing and referral to other agencies. Yeah, we have identified, I think, in previous meetings with the Comox First Nation, the upcoming OCP review was brought to their attention. So that is the intent is to go to them early and present them with the process, but see how they want to be involved. So and what their specific areas of interest are, so that we don't overwhelm them with their limited resources as well with everything. We can share everything they want, obviously, but if they have specific topic areas that are of interest. So I think perhaps one of the first things to look forward to is we're hoping to find a date towards late May where we do a street event in conjunction with the Transportation Master Plan consulting team. They are going to be consulting the public on the street design and how the different corridors in the village might function from kind of a design perspective, and we'll be starting the first OCP visioning exercises, setting some goals, finding out what some people's minds for topics. So we'll be providing you with an update on once we've set a firm date and communicate and invite the public. So it'll be outdoors. We're hoping to block off half a block or a whole block, one of the side streets for that. So stay tuned. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councillors? Go for it.
Thanks, Karen. I like the plan. I think it's good. I think you guys put a lot of thought into it. I like that there's a variety of ways that you're engaging the public, the cafes, the tours, youth engagement, the online stuff. I think that's great that we are reaching as far as we can with all these different avenues of engagement. So thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I just wanted to confirm, we haven't found anyone in particular to contract the facilitation of this at all? To do contract the public engagement, or have we?
We have potential consultants in mind. So the way this is going to work is a little bit different than I think perhaps the previous OCP review was, where the entire project went to one consulting team. So here, because we have a very strong and good OCP, we're not starting from scratch completely. So we are more consulting on specific areas of expertise. So we have a graphic consultant. They're already on board. They're developing graphic identity for the plan. We're getting the group that did a housing needs report in 2020. That was accepted by council in 2020, which was based on 2016 data, to update all the housing needs data and create a community profile, which kind of provides the background for the OCP review. And then for engagement, yes, so some of the engagement may be is driven by staff, but as we need facilitation, we will engage a consultant to help with the facilitation or some of the engagement activities. So that the heavy duty engagement is until the fall, so we haven't committed to any contracts on that one yet. It looks like Courtney wants to add.
You said what I was going to say.
Oh.
Oh,
Thank you. You answered my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just really like the report. There's so many chances for engagement. I'm really curious to see how this community is going to come out, and I'm really looking forward to it. I assume that every one of these engagement opportunities will be fully packed with people. I'm excited about it.
Thank you. It's a really great report, and I also am happy with the engagement. I appreciate the role of the APC as the sort of ambassadors of this. I think it's a good group of people to do that. They have good reach into the community, and that'll be awesome. And I have a couple of questions. So the CVRD Climate Action Plan, so does that mean we're not doing our own climate action plan? Or, because I don't have any idea what the CVRD's climate action plan is, or what it includes, or what the scope is, or anything, so.
Looks like Courtney wants to.
I just want to kind of chime in on that. This is quite recently. We learned that the CVRD is doing a regional climate action plan. Early discussions we've had with the staff indicate that this probably would be like a duplication if we were to do our own as planned and as discussed during the budget. But we want to get some more information and be sure that they would have the level of detail and the Cumberland specific detail that we would want to have. And once we have all that information, then we'd come back with more information about the implications for the budget, because you've already allocated some of the local government climate action funds, 40,000, I think, for that plan. So we'll bring back more information to you when we have it.
Okay, okay.
And yeah, if I can add to that briefly. So I believe CVRD staff are going forward with a report to their board on the action planning component. So the emissions inventory has been completed and has went to their board, and there's Cumberland specific information in that. And then now they are scoping out of what the next phase might look like, and then we'll also know a little bit more what they're intending to do and how that can fit. I mean, obviously the climate action policies have to be Cumberland specific. So if our needs aren't entirely met by what the CVRD is doing, we'll be looking at, our own climate action plan. But we're also on the working group for that work. Okay. So we're able to directly provide input and state, and make sure that Cumberland's interests are represented, or what we specifically need is brought up. Yeah.
Okay, great. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I don't think that the regional plan is meant to replace our plan completely. Certainly there would be a lot of overlap, and I think the idea would be to, collate all that data together for an emissions plan, for example, for a community emissions plan, that we would all bring that data together so that we could get a picture of the region. But then there would obviously be initiatives that we would be doing on our own, like what we did previously with CAREP, we would still have to do for our corporate emissions, right? The region isn't going to do our corporate emissions for the Village of Cumberland, so we would be responsible for that. And then I think a lot of other things that would fit into a regional plan would still have our own initiatives, our active transportation stuff, and all, it is both regional and local, right? So I don't think it completely omits a need for our own specific plan.
But it could save us a few dollars in
There'll
that
definitely
early stage,
be overlap,
potentially.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I just want to make sure that we are at some level, and whether the CVRD is doing that in their piece or we're doing it in the aftermath with our piece, but the Green New Deal is still out there waiting for that follow-up, and I'm not quite ready to let that go. So hopefully we can work that in at some point. And then I'm hoping, and I don't know whether this is a legislated thing, but the outreach to Comox could actually be moved to phase 1. I think we should be asking them what their hot topics and points of interest are as we get going, to give them some lead time and also be respectful to the process. And I would suggest that we ask them if we can come to them to do that, rather than asking them to come to us, given their busy schedules. And I think that's it. And I'm really excited. We get to do our OCP. Yay. So thank you. Thank you for all your work on this. And there's a recommendation there. If somebody wants to move it. There's no more questions.
I move the council endorse the official community plan review process and community engagement plan 2023-2024 dated March 30th, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And carried. Thank you. Okay, council policy on village-owned electric vehicle charging stations. Back to Kalen,
Finally, the one you all been waiting for.
right?
Great to be in front of you again. At the end of January, right when our new electrical vehicle charging stations were being installed over the cultural center, we came to you with a report. You provided us some guidance on how we operate our public use stations, and that they would be cost neutral and that we would charge. You went so far as well as recommending the rates based on the best information that we had at the time. One of the little caveats in that report we put out is that we use the fire hall as an example, is we have some public charging stations on village facilities and properties that we don't have a lot of guidance on who can access them, who could use them. And so this policy is intended to answer that question. There is a lot of pressure on public-owned charging stations. Early onset charging stations were always incentivized to provide free service, and so we may have and will have and do have charging stations that are owned by the village that we may or need the guidance for staff on how we operate, how we make them accessible. So within this report, you can see the policy speaks to two different types of charging stations that the village may own, and those are publicly accessible ones. The cultural center, the new ones, being a great example of that. And then, of course, there's going to be those charging stations like the fire hall that come along with the development of new facilities that may, through their practice, create problems or issues for our ongoing operations and certainly with the fire hall public safety. And so providing guidance to staff on how they can restrict access to those types of things and post access to those types of things, and having this policy in place kind of supports us that. So the EV charging stations at the cultural center are those that are intended. This policy looks at, as council directed, that they are a charge for use service, a pay for use service. Those fees are now set within, are in the process of being set within our fees bylaw based on the BC Hydro and the BCEC recommendations. And those as well, another caveat we've put in there is to acknowledge that any site that we select for that type of use needs the okay of operations and protective services to ensure that it's not going to conflict with our ongoing operational needs, of course the safety of our community. So as that works is we're recommending that those types of stations have a sign on them. We don't want to restrict access to those who are coming to work, say for the fire hall, or our new public operations center that hopefully we built. Is, there will be contractors, visitors even, that will require or want access to that, but we need to be able to create some rules around how long they can stay there and the type of use. So that's the intention of this policy here, as well as providing signage for both. As you can see, the wayfinding signage at the cultural center parking lot is up, and you've got a little bit more notes and points in the community to tell you where to find them. And so hopefully that will, as well as kind of remove some of the conflict around the expectation that, oh, it's owned by the village, I can plug my car in here and walk away for 12 hours. And so it'll provide us a little bit of more support on those things. So. Pretty straightforward. I'm happy to answer any questions. And with my resolution, as you can see, I'm looking for council to adopt this policy.
Thank you. Questions?
Just comment that I'm glad that we finally got the EV chargers, because being part of the Mid-Island EV project ended up being a very long process. So that's great. I'm glad that we finally have them and that we need to come up with a policy to manage them. Thanks.
I have a question about the fees. So because they're included in the fees bylaw, do you have to come back to council to increase those, as those costs increase, as I imagine they will? That has to come back to us?
Yes, and
Okay.
we've actually in our previous report acknowledged that we're kind of new in this game. And this year staff is going to monitor those rates as we can, and then looking at, the costs of maintaining and operating those things,
Yeah.
and come through some recommendations on how that's adjusted within the fees bylaw. I took a quick look. I have access to it. Then the use of these stations, since they are installed in late January, is rising quite considerably. Could be the nicer weather and the community's busier, but right now we are about $500 positive as far as the revenue that's being generated.
And how often are they being used?
Every day,
Every day?
and sometimes overnight.
Ah,
And no, it's interesting. We get a lot of information feedback from the network that comes through those things, and so we're able to monitor quite closely. And so we'll be able to tell in 6 months or so about how well our rates are meeting
Yeah.
our costs. So we'll
Awesome.
come back and have a discussion around where those rates should be.
Okay.
Does that info tell you where those people are coming from?
No, it doesn't.
that would be good information too.
I feel like there's some private
Yeah, you have to give
Well,
us your
there's- yeah,
address
that's-
before you plug in.
issues there. Yeah.
I imagine it's data that's carried
just with
because
your
everybody
card and
accesses with an app, but I expect that's proprietary or that's
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
information that can't
Right.
be shared. We could just go ask them.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate the signage, the clarity and the signage, so thank you. Who wants to move that?
I'll move that council adopt the council policy on the use and management of village-owned electric vehicle charging stations.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank
Huzzah.
you.
Thank you.
And that carries. Thanks, Kaylin. And Village Park, Jump Park maintenance contract, not pump track. It's not a pump track. It's a jump park. Just keeping that
It's the
straight.
jump park.
in
part
my
of the
head.
pump.
Yeah, good evening. A rare occasion where the jump park pump track makes the agenda twice
In one day.
Yeah, busy day. Yeah, unfortunately, Tyler's unavailable this evening, so he drafted the report, but I'm here to present it. And basically what we're suggesting is, in order to obtain qualified contractors to maintain the park for this year, use a similar approach to how we work with our recreation program instructors, where we insure individuals who are not incorporated and don't have an insurance policy, which comes with some added expenses and complications through MIABC's associate member program. So basically what it means is they become insured through the village's policy, and we take on some additional risk, although they don't personally have a whole bunch of liability exposure, which may risk or put the concept of them taking on this role in jeopardy. So because it requires the village's policy changing and there is a risk management consideration, MIA requires council resolutions in order to add these folks to a policy. So
Thank you. Questions? We love it.
I think it's your turn.
I don't really. I mean, I understand why they would want and need that. I don't know. I will have questions, I think, about maintenance, but I will save that for the next meeting when we talk about the pump track, jump track stuff. Yeah.
Talk about reading the motion.
Oh.
I like this idea. I think it's a innovative way of finding the service we need. So thanks to Tyler for sorting that. And who would like to make that motion?
I'll move that council provide liability insurance for contract jump park maintenance providers through the Municipal Insurance Association Associate Members Program, and authorize the manager of Parks and Recreation to enter into service provider agreements with jump park maintenance providers for the provision of liability insurance.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Thank you. And that's carried. Thanks.
thank you very much.
Okay, council reports. And I'm first. So I was going to talk about that, but I'm also going to talk about this. So a couple of things. I am the co-chair, one of the co-chairs of the BC Social Procurement Initiative, and we will be meeting with a series of ministers shortly to advocate for continued support from the province to keep this initiative going. There's been renewed interest in the province with the new election and a bunch of new electeds coming in, and they're wanting to work with BC SPI, and the plan was to wind down the initiative in 2024, but we just don't think we're ready to do that. So we're hoping the province will continue to support the program, not just for new entrants, but also for for municipalities like us who want to take their program to the next level and continue to look for support around that from the initiative staff. So that's happening. And then I also attended the North Island Sunshine Coast Regional Advisory Committee and potentially an ICE-T meeting as well, but I don't know whether it's in there. And we had, ICE-T had asked for $150 million to refund and create a sustainable funding model for this trust. It's the only trust in BC that does not have that. The province neglected to add us to their budget, but they did graciously offer us another $10 million, which will allow us to continue for now, and we will continue to advocate for a complete revision of the fund into a self-funding fund. Well, that's redundant, but you know what I mean.
Clarify how many communities like that covers. Vancouver Island and
Oh,
Sunshine.
yeah. So it's Vancouver Island and the Sunshine Coast. I don't know how many communities that is, but it's a vast area, and our fund is minuscule compared to the other funds in the province. And it does an amazing work in all of those communities. So we desperately need it. And what else did I want to talk about? So the strategic plan for the coming years is now on the website for ICE-T. I think that's it. Oh, just wanted to say that you were all there. We met with the Ministry of Lands, Water and Resources. So many thanks to councillors for being able to make that meeting, and also to KFN Chief and Councillor, who were also able to join us. It was a really productive meeting, and I look forward to continuing that advocacy to the Watershed Stewardship Fund an initiative. And then the last thing I'll mention is the firefighters banquet. So it was held in the actual fire hall, and it was lovely. Really nice to have it in the hall. And I also wanted to mention Jack Robertson was there. He was a firefighter for over 40 years with Cumberland, and was also the chief for a time, and he has recently passed, so wanted to share condolences to his family, and it was really great to see him at the banquet just a couple of weeks ago. And I'll stop there, and Troy's next, so nobody's going to ask him any questions. So, it's Councillor Gettler.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so lots of stuff happening. Where do I start? So the regular regional board meeting on the 7th, we were talking about interregional transit, and I ended up doing a CBC radio interview on this. They were interested in how we were getting BC Transit to link the island just through the transit system because of the lack of Greyhound and other services that we're experiencing. So right now we have connected Campbell River and Courtney through the Oyster River, and then we're trying to connect Nanaimo Regional District and Comox Valley Regional District. There's just a very short stretch between the two bus stops right now, so it wouldn't take too much, but we do need to add hours and get Nanaimo Regional District on board for that. So we've instructed staff to do that. We have the Regional Growth Strategy bylaw review coming up, and they chose option 2, and I can't describe that all today, but you can go back and look at the March 7th agenda, and you'll see what that means. But it isn't a full review. It's more like an update, but within that update there are a number of sort of action areas that we haven't fully addressed within the current regional growth strategy. So staff's thought was that we would address these sort of hot topic action items in parallel with updating the regional growth strategy. So we kind of take care of everything all at once. Instead of doing a full redo, we build on what we have and make sure that we've fulfilled the original regional growth strategy and add to it as well. Very interestingly, we feel that we will be bringing on a social planner for the region. That's been something that we've been talking about for many years. And so we did, as you can see in the report, one full-time position for that, and we will be in discussion with the nonprofits that we are partnering with to see what that position will entail and how it would best serve the region. Lots of interesting things happening with the Island Corridor Foundation. So we had sent a letter basically as a region supporting rail. The next Island Corridor Foundation meeting, I think 5 of the First Nation communities withdrew from the board. And then the province is now basically deciding what to do with the Island Corridor Foundation, and so we're kind of in a weird place right now with that, and I can't really say too much more about it. We wanted to. There's shipbreaking happening in Union Bay. We wanted to basically, again, say to the province that it's not a permitted use under the regional district zoning, and hopefully get some more help from the province, because operations are continuing. Deepwater Recovery is continuing to bring barges in there and breaking them down there on the shore. So that's not great, and we're looking for help from the province on that. What else? Strategic planning for the Rec Commission. I wanted to let you guys know that I did vote in favor of the strategic plan, but I voted against the capital planning framework, because if you look at the presentation for March 23rd, they say that we're going to do the sports field expansion. So that's the turf field for $5 million starting this year. Then next year we're going to start $16 million new arena, and then the timeline for the aquatic improvements. The addition of a pool is in 2026, and that's $26 million. So I really, the reports that we had got back from the consultants on the level of use of our current facilities was that they were not maximized. There was still room in all those facilities, the fields, the rink, the pool. And so it was my feeling that that we did not need to do these things this year, next year, and then in 2026. And so I voted against that on behalf of Cumberland. And there was also some regional equity discussions there around all these services being centered in Courtenay. So that was another reason that that I voted against it. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Barecki, I guess, or
Sure.
Councillor Sullivan, whichever one of you
Got
would
mine
like to
in
go next.
last, so it's up to you.
I don't know, whatever's good. I'll go. At the hospital board last month was pretty fun. More talk about the hub. So the board endorsed the MOU for the hub, which involves co-locating a range of Island Health services. It'll be a 60-40 split, where 60% of the construction and the ownership cost will go to Island Health, and 40% to the hospital board. And they have sufficient reserves enough to enable the hub without raising taxes, so that's good news for everybody. And the MOU is right now is at high level, and additional analysis will be considered. The list of the related or the services and related programs in the facility will include home care nursing, social work, geriatric specialty services, leadership and administration, palliative and end-of-life care, case management, community rehab, home support, and schedulers and community resource team. You will notice that substance use is not on that list. So substance use was mentioned in the original report and then somehow omitted for this, which was definitely caught by the board and which was brought up. And Island Health did a bit of dancing, and so this process is ongoing with the board. There was no sort of definitive conversation that defined what that would look like yet, but the board heavily was interested in substance use directly being embedded in this, which it was, and then seemingly was somewhat removed, kind of. They sort of gave a verbal sort of feel-good chat about it, but I'll let you guys know.
It needs to be written in there.
Yeah, and which it was, so the board was concerned, and so right now that's just sort of where it's at. The budget, the requisition for the valley, or for the valley is $12.6 million. It's unchanged from last year, and a home assessed at $550,000. We'll pay $143,000 for the year, and Cumberland's pays $444,575 in 2023, which makes up 3.5% of that budget. Then we had the Waste Management Board. We endorsed the financial plan. The requisition is going to be reduced to $5 million for the next 5 years. The board's talked a lot about tipping fees and the equity in tipping fees with user fees. So there's going to be a analysis report of the tipping fees versus taxation scenarios coming in June. Just some notes that the revenues received from municipal curbside contracts, household, institutional, commercial, industrial, municipal waste represent 82% of the Strathcona Management Waste operational funding, which is quite a lot. Yeah, and that's about it. There's just some funding stuff. 8% higher than anticipated. There's 8% higher than anticipated tipping fees. So there was some money back from revenues and scrap metal and battery prices, and higher than anticipated volume on the EPR, extended producer responsibility. So there's some money coming back, but yeah, that's it.
So reduced to $5 million from.
So it was $6 million, and during
Okay.
COVID, the board decided to reduce that. I actually voted against that because I think it brings like $16 to each resident. It's really, I don't know, Cumberland's traditionally like gone into reserves, so I voted to think that was a bad idea, but that's continuing. So
I think that was something that we asked of all regional district services at the time because we didn't know what the impact of COVID would be. We didn't know about any of the
Funding
federal or provincial
yeah.
funding that would come for COVID. So we asked all our services to tighten their belts as much as possible, bracing for the impact of COVID.
So they reduced,
Yes.
then raised it, then reduced it again?
I think they have to get up to 550,000, and so that's the tipping fee analysis coming up. They're going to
okay.
try to balance in between there.
Yeah.
So I think there's always a discussion that goes back and forth at that board about tipping fee versus taxation, and which is more fair because it is Comox Strathcona. It's a far-reaching board and area. So I think they were trying to balance the tipping fees with the tax increase. So they brought that back down to the 5 so that they could
Raise the
increase
tipping
tipping fees.
for the actual user
Still,
pays. Yeah.
end up with the same amount, but try and make it more equitable
Yeah.
through tipping fees. I think.
Yeah, I wonder what the correlation between tipping fees and
This
dumping
is
on
the
that
question.
road is, right? Yeah.
User use versus
Yeah.
Yeah.
taxpayers who don't even go to the dump.
Yeah.
Or the landfill, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the board's curious for sure. So
Yeah.
more info to come on that.
Awesome, thank you. Councillor Barecki.
All right, I'll make it quick here. Mine's a little lighter. Went to the council orientation at the fire hall. It was quite enlightening, excellent, but raises the issue that what is it? Machines over 25 years old can't be certified. Is that correct? So we have some equipment to buy down the pipe. Attended the 125th Cumberland Celebration Committee meeting, which you saw extensive presentation here tonight. They're doing a fantastic job. Attended the Community Justice Center monthly meeting. We discussed the annual Campanola lectures, and there was slight changes to the wording in the Constitution, but nothing groundbreaking. On March 16th, attended the Heritage Committee meeting. The decision was made on statements of significance. These are the Wellington Rail Line, the wetlands adjacent to that, which is kind of non-structural, but still important part of Cumberland's history. The Bevan houses, which collectively refer to that style of house, which is, very Bevan boxes they call them, but there's quite a number of them on Allen Avenue and over in that area. So it was a decision to collectively make them a statement of significance. And the Old Moons Records building, not the current, but the one that was housed by them before, that housed them before. We reallocated some of the plaque money to finding another statement of significance, as well as $1,000 towards updating the heritage inventory in order to recommend additions to the registry. So, and we attended the ministers' meeting for watershed security strategy and funding. I had a chat with them as you were all there, and then had a great time actually at the 12th annual Iona Campanola lecture series for the Community Justice Center. There we listened to a lecture of restorative justice featuring Judge John Riley, who was quite active in meting out a much more compassionate view of justice, particularly with the view towards many of the First Nations community in Alberta. So.
Yeah, he was awesome.
It was very well attended, and next year I'm not going to give it away, but we've got a few ideas on hand as to whom we're going to have there. So stay tuned till next March.
It's a great event. I love it.
Oh, one last thing too. I wanted to mention that for those who do you know Bruce Curtis? He's the Chief Administrative Officer of the Community Justice Center. He is retiring, and his retirement party is at 5 o'clock on Thursday night at the Courtney Museum, if you want to drop in and say hi. And there you can meet who was his, not predecessor, the other one. Successor, thank you.
Yes, Karen.
Karen McKinnon, and she's now the chief administrator for that valuable organization.
Lovely lady.
Nice.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And can I have a motion to receive those reports, please? Thank you. And a seconder. Thank you. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Bylaws, water service frontage tax amendment bylaw. Annie, are you coming up or are we just doing this? Let's just do it. Okay.
I'll move that council adopt the water service frontage tax amendment bylaw 1189 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next.
I'll move the council adopt the sewer service frontage tax amendment bylaw number 1190, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Next.
I'll move the council adopt the stormwater service frontage tax amendment bylaw number 1191, 2023.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. And that's it. Notice, motions, and announcements. Advisory Planning Commission is meeting this Thursday, April 13th at 4 p.m. in council chambers. Those are open meetings. And question period. Do, doodly do, doodly do, 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 doodly do, doodly do, do.
Ooh, I just had a brilliant idea.
Okay.
So, as part of the 125th, can they come up with
Can
a
they come up with a song?
That's great.
Right?
That's brilliant.
Right?
Yeah.
Then we can reserve the
Work it
winner a
in
seat
there.
for every council meeting.
For this time. They could
Like,
just
has
come.
a plaque with their
Plaque
name
on
every
it. Right?
time. They're just
Yeah.
welcome.
That would be
Every
nice.
time.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Even though you're always welcome every
Because
time.
there's no one here right now in the audience to ask any questions. There's no one online, is there?
I think there are some viewers. We have one question by email regarding the DVP on Camp Road on Dunsmuir Avenue. Will the village require the owners to sign an agreement regarding the encroachment onto the road? These were required in the past.
I think that's a Courtney question.
I have no recollection of any of that.
Through the mayor, and the answer is yes. And there is a sentence that says that in the report, that we
Okay.
will require an encroachment agreement
Okay.
for the existing building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I drew some
Yeah.
cheers from the
Yeah,
outside
that was
audience
nice.
there.
People listening outside.
Pretty exciting stuff.
That is really, encroachments agreements can be very exciting.
Okay, there are no more questions.
That's it. All right, motion to adjourn.
So move.
Oh,
Second.
second. Excellent. All in favor?